Afternoon and good day. Welcome to another edition of the Digital Download, which is,
The
I won't
longest
even count on
running
you.
business talk show on LinkedIn Live.
So close.
The
So
longest
close.
running weekly business talk show on LinkedIn Live.
You'd think after almost 3 years, we'd have this nailed down.
Well, we just
Yes.
rely on you to know what the patter is for this.
That's right. The longest running weekly business talk show on LinkedIn Live. Today, we'll be talking about lead generation with a special guest, Drew Donaldson. Drew will be joining us in just a moment. Drew says effective lead generation isn't about how many leads you can get, but how many sales opportunities you can create. He's going to share with us what he means by that and some things that we can do about it. But before we bring Drew onto the show, let's go around and introduce everyone. And around is kind of a small circle today. While we're at it, while we're going through introductions, why don't you reach out to a friend, ping them, and have them join us? We strive to make the digital download an interactive experience. Audience participation is not only highly encouraged, but it is a great part of our show. We would love to hear from you. So please add your comments and we will bring them on screen as well. Right. With that, introductions. Adam.
Good afternoon, everybody. Or good morning, depending on where you are. I'm Adam Gray. I'm co-founder of DLA Ignite, and I'm very much looking forward to this because lead gen and pipeline and conversations seems to be the stumbling block for every business that I talk to, no matter what their territory, what their vertical, what their size.
Excellent. Tim.
Hi, yes, I'm Tim Hughes. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. I'm also famous for writing the book Social Selling Techniques to Influence Buyers and Changemakers. Could you do me a favor, Rob? Could you just put up Andrew's good morning, good afternoon, so we can wave and he can wave back?
That's right. He waves to the monitor. Oh, I see him waving now. Excellent. Thank you for that, Tim. And myself, I am Rob Durant, founder of Flywheel Results, a proud DLA Ignite partner, and I help startups scale. So thank you for that, gents. Let's bring Drew on. Drew, good morning.
Hey.
Welcome.
Hi, how you doing?
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Adam, Rob, nice to see you.
Please tell us a little bit about yourself and what brings you here today.
Absolutely. So my name is Drew Donaldson. I'm the CEO of Grow House, and we are a strategy firm that we do a lot of lead generation. I wouldn't say we're necessarily a lead generation firm, but most of the clients that come to us, service-based businesses, that's what they're looking for. They're really looking to get leads into the front door so that they can turn them into loyal customers and serve them for years to come. So lead generation is a big part, not only of my own business, but the business I do with my clients.
Excellent. So
I didn't know there was a memo going around about beards. If I'd known, I would have grown one.
Oh, yeah, that came out last week.
Man.
Yes, yours is very impressive, particularly for a week.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is actually just my 5 o'clock shadow. It was like 3 feet. I had to trim it to make sure it fit in the frame.
There you go. Well played. Drew, let's start off with a basic question. You talk about sales ready opportunities versus leads. So what do you mean by a sales ready opportunity versus a lead, or as I've heard you reference it, versus a cold lead?
So I think there's a range on the spectrum in terms of where leads are placed, right? You could consider going to a source like Apollo and downloading a list of phone numbers as leads. Technically, I mean, you can call them, they could turn into businesses, but that is the coldest of cold. And even when you go and have like a webinar or a white paper or something like that, where people are raising their hand and saying, hey, I'm interested in this, all they're saying is they're interested in that piece of content, not necessarily they're interested in talking to you, doing business with you, doing anything more than kicking the tires. And so what I focus on with my clients is I don't care about the number of leads. I care about how many are ready for sales. And so the way we do that is instead of worrying about gating white papers and gating webinars, it's like, put the content out there for free. Don't collect a lead on the front end. Instead, wait until the person has completed the webinar, then collect the lead, book the call. So a lot of the campaigns I run right now on TikTok are focused on presenting an offer that appeals to someone emotionally and shows that we have empathy for the problem, giving them some hope that we can solve that problem, and immediately getting them on a call, as opposed to getting them to download some white paper and then having an SDR waste time following up with them, which, the conversion numbers there just are not in most people's favor, right? Unless you have a huge team of SDRs calling hundreds of people every day, the metrics for that just don't work for your small and even medium-sized businesses a lot of time.
So in terms of coldness is where no one's ever heard of you before, and then gradually, at what point does where are we getting warm?
I would say after someone engages with a piece of your content and raises their hand and says, yeah, I want to learn more about this, I want to have a conversation, they're taking that initiative. They're kind of crossing that chasm from the lukewarm of people who are just watching your content, just engaging with you on social media, and actually saying, it's worth it to me to carve out an hour of my time to have a conversation with you.
Because I often see on LinkedIn people leaving the comment, and it's like they've written it from a list. It's like someone sent it out, and it says cold calling doesn't work, but warm calling does.
Yeah,
it's a bit like saying, well, cold call. It's a bit like having that the negative positive actually makes the negative a positive. Yeah. But at what point, but no one actually defines what warm calling is. What is it?
I mean, I would consider warm calling in that area where someone has actively said, "Call me," right? It's like the old direct mail days, right? You'd have a postcard, and Bob Bly talks about this in his Irresistible Offers book, right? He says, like, put a card in your mailer that has a checkbox that says, I want a salesperson to call me. So, like, you get the leads back. You get some that are, like, not really ready. Okay, those are your cold leads or your lukewarm leads, let's call them. But the people who are raising their hand and saying, yeah, this is so impactful, I want to have a conversation, I want to talk more about this, those are going to be the people you really want to focus on. And so I think that's really the separation. The other part to, like, warm calling, cold calling, I mean, at the end of the day, all of cold calling does work. It's the scalability that you need. You need to be able to have someone sit there and contact hundreds and hundreds of people to get the conversion rate to a point where it actually makes sense. If you're a solopreneur, if you're just like, a consultant, if you're a two-person agency, you're not going to have the capability to do cold outreach in a really strategic way at scale. That's the problem. So if we know that that's the limitation, then we really should focus more on getting people that are, if we're going to fill our calendar with 40 appointments a week, let's fill them with 40 people who've already raised their hand and we've not just, like, gone out and poked them and said, like, hey, should we talk? Let them come to you and say, yeah, you know what, the concept you presented in that webinar, the concept you presented in that podcast, whatever, that is intriguing enough to me to book a call.
Yeah, a friend of mine, I had a call with him this week, and he says that he has to make 400 dials a week. So is it 400? Was it a day? 400 dials a day to basically make a meeting. So last week he got 5 meetings, of which all 4 of them basically then pulled out. So he ended up making 2,000 dials to get 1 meeting, of which didn't do anything. He described that as soul destroying.
Oh yeah. Well, and I cannot imagine being someone that does SDR for a living, because for those metrics alone, I mean, the average benchmark for an SDR or even like someone that's more on the biz dev side is 100 dials a day. Like 100, that is crazy to me. And then I just was exposed to this technology coming out called Air AI, which essentially is like an automated SDR. And if people have not seen Air AI yet and what their technology is capable of, and this is, I have no dog in this fight. Like, I'm not associated with them in any way. I'm just impressed by what they're doing. But the whole way it works is it sounds like a human conversation. It doesn't sound like AI, and it can have up to like a 10-minute conversation with people. What's fascinating about it is this now replaces that SDR getting their soul crushed with a robot that doesn't care. It just doesn't care. It can do thousands of these a day, not just hundreds. And so again, scalability, if you have a tool like that gives you the scale to make cold outreach make a lot of sense, but not everybody's going to be able to afford a tool like that. I've been trying to sign up for it to try it in my own business, and they've gotten so many people come in that they don't let anybody else join right now. So good luck finding the demo or getting in, but I think that's going to be the way things go, because I can't imagine that soul crushingness staying in the market. Anything that's that painful, people are going to automate away.
I wanted to bring some comments on screen and share those. First, we have, and I apologize, I butcher names, but I try. Ashfaq Hussein, who says, I agree with Drew, especially in the world of digital automation. There's a massive opportunity to nurture the lead until they are warm prospects, in turn will have higher conversions compared to just generating leads at the top of the funnel. And then we have Hannah Drake Kelly sharing 100 dials is high. Most SDRs around 40 to 60. My best one was 75, but he was an animal.
But I think there's a difference here between dials and conversations, isn't there? A dial is, I'm going to dial your number, it's going to ring, no one's going to pick it up, I'm going to move on to the next one. That's you can do 1,000 of those a day. She made another comment about needs a new script. Yeah, you only need a new script at the point you've actually got through to somebody and they've said, please don't bother me again, and put the phone down.
I mean, I know I don't take cold calls, so
no,
you can dial away. You can have 1 million dials, but I don't take cold calls.
Yeah, and I think
and neither do lots of
senior
people. Yeah,
your comment, Drew, about wait until they have expressed some sort of interest in you. The challenge is that these days most people do not want to be sold to. As a salesperson, I get through to you and I tell you, I'm really great at what I do. And you say, well, you're going to say that, aren't you? Because no one's ever going to begin the conversation by saying, I'm not very good at what I do. So, it's like these are just words. I may or may not be in market, but until there is some context and some relationship and some trust there, you're just telling me words. No one ever says we're third best, we're a bit expensive, we don't always deliver on time. Everybody is market leading, customer focused, and all of this stuff. So I think that the challenge is that the challenge for people is getting to that point, isn't it? So yeah, they've come to a webinar, they've engaged with the content. The challenge is getting them onto the webinar in the first place, because let's be honest, we could all be on webinars from dawn till dusk every day, because everybody has got into this onto the hamster wheel of content marketing. I'm going to send content out, and because my content's really good, it's going to do some work for me. The problem is that I'm not going to read your content because I don't know who the hell you are. And it's only when I know who you are that I'm going to invest the time in reading your content to be impressed.
That's I think the power of platforms like this and appearing on other podcasts, and that's one of the things that I push with my clients a lot is getting on someone else's platform, being able to talk about your expertise, getting exposed to a new audience of people who've already bought into an existing show is incredibly powerful in a way that you creating organic content yourself is just not, right? Because you're talking to the same group of people all the time, unless you're going and pushing that content out to a cold audience. And even so, we're running into the issue that you're hitting on, which is, I don't know who you are. Why should I care about you? Right. And so unless you can hook them in a couple seconds in a video clip and get them to lean in, there's a good chance that they're just going to keep scrolling right by. I mean, I think the interesting part that we've found in outreach is that if you can provide, outreach works, but it doesn't work the way 99% of people are doing. Outreach works when you provide value at the front end of that. I was just talking to a guy who sells businesses, right? So he's like a business broker. He goes and he finds an entrepreneur that's ready to exit, and then he finds a buyer. If he's going and emailing everybody out saying, I'm the best, business broker, I'll sell your business, lickety split, all this stuff, no one's going to respond to that. But if he sends a 1-sentence email that says, I have a buyer that's looking for a business like yours, are you interested in selling? And that person is interested in selling, even if they're not, they're probably going to respond to it with a no, and then you can cross them off the list. Or they're going to say, yeah, you know what, I've kind of been toying that around. So if you're able to provide some value in that initial outreach, whether it's on the phone or in a LinkedIn message or an email, that's incredibly powerful. And that's the same thing you're doing by appearing on podcasts and other people's platforms and webinars and guesting and all of that, is that you're providing that value first so that they can kind of take a look at you and be like, all right, yeah, I like what he's saying. I like his approach. Let's have a deeper conversation about how he can help me.
I think actually, I agree with you, but I think it's more, it's less about the adding value, because everybody adds value. You know, otherwise they would. They claim.
I always say, so a plastic bag is value and a Rolls Royce is value. So you have, when you use the term added value, you need to be really careful about what you say and mean about it, because everybody says it.
But I think Drew, you know, the fact that your first comment on here was about, you know, this is just my 5 o'clock shadow. You know, yeah. people will have watched that. They will have laughed and they will have thought, I like him. He's a nice guy. And I think that's, and your comment absolutely nailed it when you said it does work, but people are using it to scale the wrong bits. And yeah, you go onto a podcast, you demonstrate that you're a nice guy and people are going to like you, and there's a bit of personality there. And that's the thing that unlocks them consuming content in the future. And I think that a lot of the mistake that businesses make is they assume that I'm going to get you on my podcast and then you're going to buy. Or I'm going to get you on my, not podcast, I'm going to get you on my webinar and then you're going to buy. Or I'm going to get you on my webinar and then you're on my sales process. I'm going to mail you every week or month or 6 months or whatever it is. And actually, that's like journey mapping. Customer journey mapping is never customer journey mapping. It's always your sales journey mapping, because you're only ever looking at it from the objective that you're going to put your hand in their pocket and take some money out. And I think that the really interesting thing is that when we think about the personality aspect and using these tools to scale that, that's where the win is. Because, you know, for what you do, I don't know anyone else that does that. And you're the guy with a big beard, and actually that's quite engaging and endearing. And that means that there's no apparent threat to me having a conversation or pinging you a message saying, oh, can you give me some thoughts on this? And I think it's that bit that people often miss when they're trying to create a strategy for selling, isn't it?
I think so. I think the other thing you kind of hinted at there is that I think people are very impatient when it comes to content marketing. They see these things as transactional where they should be relational. The whole idea of a customer journey is that you start someone cold and you get them to be warmed up to you over time. And yet most people treat content marketing like, well, I'm gonna get you on the webinar and then you're immediately in the sales funnel, like you're saying. No, you shouldn't be in the sales funnel. You should be in the content funnel. You should start dripping out, hey, did you like that webinar? Well, hey, we have a webinar coming up next week on this topic. Or, hey, you should check out this white paper that we wrote or this checklist that we put together for people that went to this webinar. Like, I think most people, especially because the attribution of content marketing is so difficult, they want that immediate, like, okay, we got a lead, they're in the sales pipeline, we're closing at this percentage rate. They're not willing to be patient enough to really warm these people up over, 30, 60, 90 days. They just want the sale right now. They were on the webinar, they're hot, let me give them a call, let's see if they want it. And meanwhile, if you have 500 people on a webinar, that's a week's worth of dials. And if you get one person out of that, you might be lucky. But you're going to annoy the other 499 that don't care about it, or just checking it out because the headline was cool. So it's really a challenge.
Yeah, I agree with you, Drew. I think that we have to be quite careful, don't we, in terms of seeing. We run a webinar, and immediately that means that the people are basically all qualifying in. Whereas as you say, the person could be there just to, you're sharing this great idea, and then maybe just checking out what that great idea is. There's no budget, there's no process, there's nothing behind it.
What do they say, Tim? The first 3 people to buy your product are your competitors. So simply because they showed up for the webinar does not mean that they are there to buy. They might be your competitors there to spy. I wanted to bring up Andrew's comment. I love it. Andrew Slesser says, to get any connection to buy into what you're trying to sell, there needs to be a personal connection between both parties. If there isn't, the buying party will never be interested in what the seller has to say. Drew, I
Perfect.
wanted to get your thoughts on that.
So, yes, but again, everybody's doing this wrong. Like every single personalized message I get on LinkedIn or through my email is the same hacky script that there's got to be some sales course out there that gives away these templates because it's the exact same thing, right?
I get it as well, Drew. The other day I had two, and I meant to take a screenshot. I had it was the two different companies, same title, same script.
Yeah, it's saw you went to this school, or saw you did work with this person, looks great, by the way, and then sales pitch. And it's like that's their attempt to build some kind of connection. And if you look at how that is actually supposed to work, what it's supposed to be is that if I want to get in Tim's good graces, if I want to get Tim on a call, I'm going to go and follow him on LinkedIn. When he posts something, I'm going to say, that's a great post, Tim. Great insights. Enjoyed it. And I'm going to do that over the course of the next 6 weeks until Tim starts seeing me and going, who's this bearded guy commenting on all my posts, right? And either he reaches out to me or I start having a dialogue with him in the comments. We build that relation. Hey, Tim, I have some ideas to share with you. Can we jump on a call? If I do that over 6 weeks and me and Tim are now LinkedIn buddies, of course he's going to jump on a call. Why not? That could be a good connection. He might actually gain something. I'm leaving real organic posts. But if I just reach out to Tim and say, Tim, great things you're doing with DLA Ignite. I run a lead gen agency. Like, he's not going to care. It's the same exact thing as if you just cut out the first part and put, I run a lead gen agency.
Drew, while we were waiting to go live, I went into my inbox and I took 3 of those and I created a rule that whenever that person emails me ever again, it will go straight into the waste paper basket.
Oh, yeah. You have to.
The other thing which is lovely is that in one of these outreach tools or sales cadence scheduling tools, there is clearly the standard script says, just bouncing this back to the top of your inbox.
Oh yeah, I get that one a lot. Oh yeah.
And what it says is obviously this is where you put your own message in, and the salesperson reads it and says, "Oh, that'll do. I'll use that," not knowing that every other salesman in the world is doing exactly the same thing. So if I had a pound,
there was a thing where basically what happened was that people would send you a picture of it. They said this is the last time I'm writing to you, and they'd send a picture of a squirrel or something like that, and that went on for about 3 weeks, and then it died. but everybody did it, so there must have been. I think it's like marketing profs or something like that, or something where they say this is the way that to get hold of people. And of course, quite often, I mean, Adam always says, you can send a LinkedIn message and get $1 million deal. That's luck.
Yeah.
What you need to be able to do is send 2, 3, 4, 5 LinkedIn messages and get $1 million deal on each of those ones. That's when you have like a methodology.
I was just reading this thing about David Rockefeller last night and his Rolodex, which, he kept very closely guarded. And when they finally, after he died, and they finally opened it up and started looking at it, what they found was that he didn't just keep the contact information in there, but he kept personal details on every person he met. And he would review them prior to a meeting. And he said, and I think it was a letter or something, that he thinks that is the biggest reason why he was able to put together so many of these deals, is because he would go and say, hey, last time we talked, your daughter was on a field hockey scholarship. How's she doing at, Penn or whatever? And that personal connection over time is what made people so, ruthlessly loyal to David Rockefeller. So I think if someone of his stature is taking the time to actually take note of the thousands of people that he's run into in the course of his life and take those notes, it shows there is some value in that, way beyond just scraping their LinkedIn and being like, oh, you went to Stanford? I went to Stanford. We should talk about that. The other one I'll name and shame, and I'm sure you guys get 100 of these a week, calendar.ai. This is some new software that sales got a couple months ago, and I would say 50% of all the sales emails all come from this calendar with a K AI tool. They all read exactly the same. It's the same template. It must be like an easy button for sales guys. But I did the same thing. I create a rule that anytime an email comes in, that in the footer says this email was created by Calendar AI, right into the spam box. Because I'm interested in talking with people who haven't actually taken an interest in like what I do. I had a company, Grow House is the name. I had a company that sells irrigation systems reach out to me. like they didn't even look at the website. Like they did nothing. They just saw it and they're like, oh, you must do a greenhouse. Like that's the level that I think a lot of SDRs are working on, or even some of these AI tools are working on. They're not building that real connection.
That's really interesting, Drew, because I went to ChatGPT and I basically asked it to write 5 questions for you, having read your website. And the 5 questions it came back with were all about irrigation systems. So I'm going like, and I'm reading your website, and I'm thinking, there's nothing on here about irrigation systems. And I'm going through your blog and stuff like that. So where's it going? Anyway, it came up with, that's what ChatGPT did when it.
I mean, Tim, you can ask him. I might not have the most accurate answers, but I could probably string something together for you.
Thank you.
Your comment then, Tim, and I think we've discussed this on other podcasts about the mental health of salespeople. This constantly being ground down by no, but also I think as the recipient of a constant stream of untargeted, poorly written, poorly conceived outreaches, it impacts on our mental health as well. So sometimes when somebody, like you said, Tim, says, this is going to be the last time I'm reaching out to you, I often respond to those people saying, do you promise this is going to be the last time?
So you're a mental health advocate in that role?
For my own mental health.
Oh, okay. Follow. All right.
So last week, Drew, I took a number of emails. I get ones, about we've got thousands of people that can develop apps for you and stuff like that. So totally inappropriate. So I took that and I put it into ChatGPT and I said, can you write a response that lets down these people gently? And it just came up with some great responses, and those people haven't written back.
Every day I find a new use case for ChatGPT. So it's I will have to steal that one. I mean, I think you were referencing it earlier, like the picture of like, hey, you're driving me nuts, and then the picture of the squirrel.
That's it.
Like,
that's it.
It's a charm offensive. It's run by a guy named John Bunchen. He's a really smart, like his whole story is very interesting from a marketing perspective. Like the way he started was essentially he was a sales guy. He got home from the pub a little bit late at night. He was really drunk. He wrote this funny drunk email to a prospect. The prospect loved it. And he's like, oh, if I'm actually funny in my sales pitches, if I'm engaging, if I'm endearing, people will like it. The problem is he's very creative. He can write a very charming email. Most people go and take his course and they're like, oh, I can do that. And they just copy and paste, or they try, but it still comes off as salesy. So that's probably what you're seeing.
There's another one that's been it's probably about 7 years old, which is where they say something, you haven't replied, therefore you're ill, anyway, the punchline is you're under a rock. If you are and you need help, and the first time you read it, that's funny and that's different. The 50th time that you read it, you go, get a life, guys. You've got to you need to learn how to sell. Can I pick up on this comment that's here? How do you deal with the challenge of a noisy market while nurturing leads results in competitors taking your potential clients?
They weren't your clients. Like, I don't mean to be glib. Like, they're not. It's that whole thing. She's just not that into you. Like, that's the reality. Is like there are plenty of fish in the sea. There are plenty of people, and unless you are doing a 10-year nurture campaign, like if you are running a standard 60, 90-day nurture where you're having multiple touch points throughout the week, you're retargeting them on social, you're giving them value day after day, you're showing them that you have a lot to add to their business, then the people that aren't interested in you just aren't interested in your product. But the people that are will respond to it. So I always think about it as like, I have hundreds of sales calls every year that I'm on. I don't book hundreds of clients every year, right? I book a fraction of that, the people that are going to be most in line with the way I do business, the way I help people, and what their expectations are from our relationship. Everybody else hires somebody else, but I don't worry about that, right? Because either they'll hire that other person, realize that I was a better fit, and then come back, or they'll have great success, and I applaud them for finding the right fit for their business. So that's kind of my thing is I never try to look at the market and be like, oh, all these people are beating me to the punch. There's very few trends out there that you have to be on top of or you're going to get buried, right? And those things come across the wire once, twice a year, right? Like if you look at like AI software, if you were a software dev at the end of last year and you jumped on the AI bandwagon and started developing tools, you probably could have made bank really quickly putting something out, right? And a lot of people did. A lot of people made a lot of money on AI tools. Now the market's starting to cool off, right? People are realizing that it's all pretty much just ChatGPT, and ChatGPT for most people is free. So why do I need this special tool? And then the tools are getting more specialized, which mean they're niching down. They're not attracting much of a market anymore. That's the kind of trends you have to be aware of if you're in an affected market. But for most people, it's okay. There's always going to be new entrants entering the market. Just because you lost some this week doesn't mean next week there's going to be a whole bunch of new people looking for your services.
And you don't really need a million leads, do you? Because you couldn't never deal with them.
No. I always ask that question during my discovery calls is like, how many leads could you actually take?
Yeah.
And when like, and I, because my focus is booked on the calendar, usually it's like, well, if I could do like 3 more meetings a week, I'm like, okay, well, 3 more meetings a week is not the justification to spend like hundreds of thousands of dollars on a marketing campaign. Like that's pennies, right? Like you could just get that by reaching out to all your current customers and asking for referrals once a week. Like you could easily book 3 extra calls a week. So I think it's the eyes are bigger than the stomach. Like everybody thinks they want thousands of leads, but then when they realize the work it takes to work 1,000 leads, it's like maybe 10 a week, 10 a month.
Yeah, we had one of our SDRs complain that he got 25 meetings in a week, and he said, "I don't have any time to prospect because I'm all my time is being taken up by meetings."
Yeah,
and it's like one of those things. Well, it's really important that you prospect. Yeah, but I'm having meetings.
Good. Like you're complaining the plate's too full.
Yeah.
Drew, you made reference to organic posts and organic interaction. Organic posts often provide authenticity and genuine engagement, but how can businesses amplify the reach of these posts using paid advertising without losing that authenticity?
That's a great question. So, I mean, when we talk about content, the cheapest content and the most effective content are actually the same thing. It's video, right? Every single platform out there promotes video at a much cheaper cost because it has much higher levels of engagement than any other type of content you can post. And because we know that, we can now use that in our favor. Tools like LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok, pretty much everywhere have a campaign type called either engagement or video view, where you can push the content out without a call to action, right? You can have a call to action in the video, like, hey, if you like this, click the button below or visit my website or something like that. But you can actually remove the button on most of those posts. So it doesn't, the only little thing is a little sponsored by at the very top of the post. So it doesn't look like an ad. And those ads are dirt cheap because Facebook and TikTok and all these platforms love them because it means that the person it's going to is not going to leave TikTok or Facebook, right? They're going to consume more ads. They're going to generate more revenue for the company. So like we did this same strategy for a podcaster. He's a farmer in Tennessee. His podcast is about farming. It's about agriculture. He wanted to grow the show. So we cut up his podcast into little 60-second bits. And we put a nice end card on with the details of the show and where you could listen. And then we spent $4 a day buying video views. And in 3 months, we took him from 2,000 listens per month to 10,000 listens per month. And that was 3 months. And that's all we did. We didn't do anything else. And because we got that hockey stick effect of growth, he was able to get sponsorships and he was able to bring on new guests. And it's just the power of these ads is unbelievable in terms of just getting in front of your audience and getting them to start consuming your content for so little. You don't need $20 a day ad spends to really make a difference, especially if you're specific in who you're targeting.
But I thought we were always told that we needed to put some sort of call to action on the end.
Oh, no, that's what I'm saying. You can put the call to action on the end of the video.
But you're not putting a link to click to where they go out.
So like in a Facebook ad, you know how there's that banner at the bottom that has like a button and it has like, you'll have like a link. You can, when on a video view ad, you can turn that off. And that way it doesn't look like an ad. So if people are scrolling through, they'll stop and they'll actually watch the content thinking, oh, well, this is something from my feed. This is something from a page I follow or whatnot.
And the content itself, that was organic to begin with. That was the podcast.
Yeah, that was just clips from the podcast. It wasn't an ad. It wasn't him saying, hey, go listen to our show. It's literally 60-second clips from the show of them talking about what type of cows are the best cows and what, how their equipment broke down last week. And it's stuff that would only appeal to farmers. But because we narrowed our focus in and said, listen, I only want this to be shown to farmers, people who are interested in homesteading, people who are preppers, that whole kind of cadre, we were able to get massive amounts of engagement and a huge growth in subscribers simply by pairing the content itself, that are nice organic content, not salesy content, with the right audience, and then spending a couple bucks a day on it.
So for businesses with limited budgets, striking a balance between organic efforts and paid campaigns can be really challenging. What would you recommend for optimizing the spend while maintaining effective lead generation?
So the way I would look at it is there's platforms, like if you look at a chart of the lifespan of a social media platform, right? Every social media platform, and there's a famous chart out there that tracks all this, but there's a point where all these platforms peak. And to my knowledge, there has never been a platform that has peaked that has then peaked again. Once it peaks, it's kind of over and the platform starts dying, right? We've seen this with MySpace, we've seen it with Facebook, Snapchat, all of these platforms they hit their initial peak and then it's kind of a slow decline. Facebook, Instagram, they're on a slow decline, right? To kind of becoming irrelevant. TikTok, I think, is still on an upswing. And because it's still on an upswing, that's where the organic possibility is. You're not really going to get much organic reach on Facebook and Instagram, but you are going to get massive amounts of organic reach still on TikTok. That will change. As TikTok matures as a platform, they will cut back on the organic reach for businesses and eventually start doing what Facebook does, where it's like, listen, if you want to get exposure, you're going to pay us, right? That's the Facebook modus operandi. So when we look at how to maximize that spend, I look at not, well, how much are we spending on the ad, but what platforms are we buying ads on? TikTok works so well that I wouldn't buy ads on TikTok necessarily unless I had a very clear goal of, I want to generate leads. And that's what I use TikTok for. Whenever I run campaigns there, it's to do lead gen because I find that is the best platform to do them. And for $50 a day, you can generate a week's worth of leads for a small business easily. And leads meaning calls on the calendar. When you go onto somewhere like Facebook, where the price for advertising is significantly lower, but the quality of the lead is also lower, I don't want to buy lead gen ads there. Instead, I want to do what we were just talking about. I want to buy a series of video ads that essentially we start with a main ad with our big cold audience, and then I'm going to take the people that watch at least 75% of that video and then show them the next video. And I'm going to do this using ad retargeting in the back end by establishing an audience that says anyone that watches 75% of this video gets sent this video, and then to video 2, video 3, video 4. And then by the time I get to video 5, I really have those people boiled down to the people who are most likely to convert into a sale. And so if you don't have $50 a day to spend, if you are just starting out, this is one of the easiest ways to generate leads because you don't need to spend thousands and thousands of dollars every month. You can spend $200, $300, $400 on a campaign like this and still get enough traction by the time people matriculate down to that 5th video, which we call the offer video. That's the one where we actually are trying to convert them. So we give them 4 pieces of content up front and then a 5th video that says, listen, if you liked all that content, if you've enjoyed this, if you've gotten value from it, why don't you book a call and we can see if we can help you. So that's the kind of the 2 sides of the strategy. Like if you want to use an up and coming platform, use it for the lead generation ads because that's where you're going to have the most success. If you're dealing with a platform that is on a decline, you really want to benefit from their lower ad costs to buy cheaper ads and get more high quality people through that funnel by retargeting them with several pieces of content first.
Andrew asks a question: what social media site give the best returns?
TikTok, 100%. It's not. Right now, TikTok is like the golden age of Facebook ads when there were 22-year-olds out there becoming millionaires overnight. That's what's happening on TikTok now. TikTok Shop is blowing. TikTok Shop is making, soccer moms in the Midwest rich. Like it is ridiculously how powerful that platform is, and how the returns I've seen on that match nothing else on any other platform, even running the exact same content. So it's not even a matter of, oh, well, you ran this type out on Facebook and then you ran this on. No, I'm running the same content on multiple platforms, and nothing does better than TikTok.
I have a 12-year-old great niece and a 9-year-old great niece and a 12-year-old great nephew, and the first place they shop always is TikTok Shop. That's the first place they go.
It's becoming.
Is that also true for B2B, or is that predominantly B2C?
TikTok has a massive, massive audience, and it is there are people in there. I've gotten people of 8-figure businesses booking calls through TikTok. Like, they are out there. They're out there because their kids are on the platform, and also it's just a fun platform. Like, it's algorithmically generated content that's always new. It looks at what you like. It feeds you more of what you like. It's the perfect not adrenaline, dopamine like delivery system, right? It's constant. It's so different than what you see on Instagram and Facebook, where it's not that at all. It's it's only the people you follow. It's very little in terms of discovery, and it work. The proof in the pudding that it works is that one of the first things that Twitter did when Elon Musk took over was start the For You thread, where it's out now. They're doing algorithmically generated content where they're not just showing you the people that you follow. They're showing you content that they think you'll like. And that's what makes it so powerful, is that if you join, you're not going to see the same videos that the 9-year-old sees. Never. You'll never see them. You might see them for like the first day when it's still trying to figure out who you are. But just by entering your birth date on the first screen of the sign up, they're going to be able to tell, like, all right, you're probably going to be into this.
Dash cams.
Yeah, dash cams. That's what you're into.
That's what I get always, dash cams.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because I watch them. So the thing is what happens is that now when I go out driving, I think I'm living in this dash cam world. If I'm waiting for these cars to sort of crash in front of me and stuff like that,
it's so funny that you should say that, Tim, because it's exactly the same for me. And they're very addictive dash cam video clips, aren't they?
Well, you're waiting for that big Arctic lorry or something. There's something like walking across the road, and it's that Arctic truck, as you call it. Sorry.
Well, I've seen a lot of people start posting dash cam videos where nothing happens. Like,
yeah. And they'll put wait at the end on it.
It's brilliant,
and nothing happens, and it was like.
You gotta appreciate the content creators out there that just really are the perfect troll. They're just, I've sat through so many of those wait till the end videos, and the end is just so disappointing. But it works. It gets them views. It gets them more watchers.
And you wait to the end, so the algorithm sees that people are waiting to the end on this video, which is.
So Facebook did something a while back about. They I forget what it was. I think they prevented you from running ads for a period of time when you had that kind of text on screen, like watch till the end, or like, the secret will be revealed at the end, or stuff like that. I don't know if they do it anymore, but I remember attending a webinar with someone on the Meta Ads team, and they were talking about how, like, they're trying to diminish the use of that because everybody was doing that. Everybody was, and it was just polluting the platform with a bunch of like they did the like this post if. That was the other thing they were really coming down on, because people were using that for retargeting, and they were like, nah, you can't.
So there's a really good question come in.
Yes.
My main prospects are mostly Cisco IT managers for large enterprises. Have you had any luck on TikTok with this audience?
I'm trying to think.
You can say no, Drew.
No, I'm just trying to think if I have any clients that are in that field. I see. Is is that cybersecurity? Is CISO cybersecurity,
Yeah,
or is
Chief
CISO like
Information
network?
Yeah,
Security
Chief
Officer.
Information Security Officer. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I did have one client on there. I don't think we ran for very long. He ended up going more with a pay-per-click strategy. So I can't say for sure. What I will say is that out of all the platforms I've been on, there is a huge amount of diversity on that platform. And I know for a fact that cybersecurity is a niche on there. The best thing I would say is go on to the, if you go to create a ad account on TikTok, there's a tool in there, just like on Facebook, where you can go through their ad library and you can see in certain sectors what ads are running and how long they've been running. I would go in and look at some of your competitors, see if they're running ads, see how long. If someone's been running an ad for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days consistently, that's a pretty good sign that they're finding some progress there. So I can't say for certain that I've ever picked those people out in any of my campaigns, but I know for a fact cybersecurity is a big topic on there. And I'm sure that if you go into the ad library, you'll be able to find at least someone in there that's kind of in your niche to do some kind of judging.
So Drew, may I ask you a question that ChatGPT created for you?
Sure.
It's because your website basically came up with responses about agriculture. I had to do it on a particular blog post.
Okay.
So in your blog post, you emphasize the importance of building a brand presence on social media, even before having a product to sell. Some might argue that this strategy is resource intensive and risky. Can you share specific examples of companies that have successfully employed this approach and how they have mitigated the potential risks? Good question, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a good question, but I take issue with the fact that if you're just starting something out, it has to be necessarily labor intensive. Like, think about it this way. Like, I always get a chuckle with Gary Vee because he says, like, oh, if you're not producing 60 pieces of content a day, like, you're doing something wrong, right? And his heart's in the
He's
right.
got a team of people doing it.
That's the problem, right? Like, yeah, when you have a team of people, you can create 60 pieces. If it's just you, creating 60 pieces of content is insane for someone who's running a business and has to manage payroll and have staff meetings and meet with clients and actually do the work they're getting paid for. Like, that's ridiculous. So when you're in that position, you can't be doing that. But at that point, your business is already established. So if we're looking at a business that's just getting started, let's say, Tim, you're thinking about doing something different. You're gonna start a new lemonade stand, right? And you're gonna leave everything behind and you're gonna do that. Well, you're not gonna just pack up one day and call up DLA and say, like, I'm out. I'm doing a lemonade stand now. No, you're gonna do the pre-work while you're still employed. You're gonna say, all right, well, the first thing I need to do is create a brand. All right, so I have the brand, I have the logo, I have the color. Okay, now I need a product. All right, this is what the product's going to be. I'm not going to sell the product for a while, but I need to create this. And then as we're going through this, you have time to go and put up posts, talk about the best kinds of lemonade, talk about, when you're going to launch, what your new location is going to look like. You have this time because you haven't actually started the business yet. So the problem is in the question. There is no risk. There is no resource intensiveness. And also, you don't need thousands of pieces of content pre-launch. You just need something that when you first get out into the market and you say, hey, come to my lemonade stand, that if they pull up your page, it's not blank. Like, so I think the concept of like this has to be this big arduous thing is just, it's not correct. It doesn't take a lot of effort. I mean, I can spin up a page for a business in 20 minutes, right? It's not a Herculean effort to add a banner and a profile image and fill in some details on Facebook or TikTok. What's really the bigger problem that people have is actually taking that concept and then starting to make sales, right? You can do all the great product development and you can do all the great branding and all of that ahead of time. Great. But the problem people always have is that they don't validate the idea ahead of time. And this happens even before the branding takes place. You should validate the idea so that by the time that all this work you're putting into the branding and the content, it's gonna pay off because you already know the idea works. So like in that scenario, you would, before you ever start a Facebook page or a TikTok account or a website, you're gonna go out and set your lemonade stand up at a flea market and see how many cups of lemonade you can sell. And then you might do that over the course of 6 weeks to see what kind of traffic pattern changes over those 6 weeks. And if no one buys your lemonade, well, the market is spoken. Your lemonade's no good. Go back to the drawing board. If you sell
Go
out
back to
every
DLA.
day, yeah.
Yeah.
if you sell out every day, then build the Facebook page. Like, that's not work. That's not a risk. So I think that's the problem I have with that question. It's like
There's-
there are plenty of business.
There's a drink in the here in the UK. I don't know if it's sold elsewhere. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. But when the owners were thinking of leaving their jobs, they bought a stand at Glastonbury. And which probably translates. And they basically had 2 bins outside, and they said, "We're thinking of quitting our jobs. If you think we should quit our jobs and set this company up, put your container." This is in the days when single-use plastic was okay. "Put your single-use plastic in this bin, and if you don't think we'll put..." And the bin where they should quit their jobs basically was overfilled, so they quit their jobs.
That's
Nice.
the perfect market to validate in, especially at something like Glastonbury, where you're going to be exposed to hundreds. Was it like 300,000 people attend Glastonbury every year, or something like that? That's a fantastic opportunity to validate, and it was worth every dollar, even if they would have failed.
I bet the stand there wouldn't have been cheap,
No.
but I mean, they're great validation in terms of whether they should quit or not.
Yeah, and they would have saved thousands of dollars if everyone said, "No, don't quit your job. This is terrible." They would have saved themselves potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars in development costs, knowing that, hey, this idea just isn't that good. And that's okay. Not every idea is going to fly. I've had plenty of ideas that sink like rocks. But you know what? I validate every single one before I invest in building them out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, Drew, paid and organic podcasts and blogs and videos. There's only 28 hours in a day if you're a small business owner, and you're probably working all of them. Yeah. What do I need to be doing? What platforms do I have to be on? What content do I have to be creating? Where do I put all of this time and energy? Do I have to be on all of them?
So I don't think so. I think you have to be really, especially when you're first starting out, you need to be really specific about the platforms you're going to be participating in. And the platforms you participate in should align with the audience you're trying to serve. So for example, if you're only trying to target CEOs, Facebook is probably not the place I would go first, right? I would start on LinkedIn, because where are CEOs most likely to hang out? They're most likely to be on LinkedIn. I would also say TikTok, because it has such a wide and diverse audience, and because it has organic reach. So I would balance those two things. I would look at, where is the audience you're trying to reach, and making sure you're on those platforms that they are on. And also, what are the platforms that are going to give you the best organic exposure to your content? Because budget's a concern. We want to be able to take advantage while we can of platforms that are willing to show our content out to the world. When it comes to the actual workflow, what I always say is content recycling is the key to any content strategy, right? This idea that you have to create thousands of unique pieces of content in multiple formats is crazy to me. What I do right now is whenever I'm on a show like this, I have my team, and again, this relies on a team. If you're doing it by yourself, you have to scale it down. But if you have a team, I give them a recording like this. They cut out the best little bits. We go in and take those and get them transcribed. And then we use those for social posts on whatever platforms we're gonna post them on. So the workflow that we use is taking one piece of master content that only takes me an hour to create, in the case of like this show, and then I can hand it off to a team of people who are experts in taking that hour of content, breaking it down to bite-sized chunks, and then reposting it on our social platforms. So now I don't have to come up with content every day. I just have to give them a steady supply of shows like this. Or I just did a sales training with one of my clients the other day, and it went really well. And I was like, hey, can I just share this? I sent that to them. So what I am always looking at is, how do I create these marketing assets without having my time having to put more time into this process? Because that's where people lose. That's where people lose the heart to do it. They stop doing it because they sit in front of their computer and they go, okay, I have an hour to write this blog post, and they have no ideas. And then they go, I should just be working on email. And then they stop doing it. I would just focus more on where can I do stuff like this, where I can create an hour's worth of content and then repurpose that into a blog article, into several social media posts, into a transcript for the website, into a series of tweets. that's really the secret of making content marketing work and not overworking yourself to death trying to create all this stuff organically.
And if you don't have a team,
you got to do it yourself.
Of course, yeah.
No, I mean, like, here's the thing. I think I was thinking about this morning. Every business goes through these stages. And I think between your first, like, if we're talking like MRR, between $1 and around $10,000, you're really by yourself. You're maybe by yourself and you have like one person. You can afford like one VA or something like that. And then with every $2,000 increment up, so when you're making $12,000, you really can afford to bring on another person. And so by the time you get to like $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a month in recurring revenue, you have a decent team at your disposal. Now that doesn't mean, and I'm talking gross revenue, I'm not talking net profit. So if your profit margins are decent, if they're like, even like 30, 40%, you still are taking home a decent amount for a paycheck for a startup, but you're able to put these people into place. You don't need to make, $2 million a year to start hiring people to help you. So what I always say is like, do your best in those early days. Focus on sales. Don't focus so much on content marketing. Don't focus so much on these things that are really, really high effort, low reward. And then as you grow, start dropping those tactics in. Like what I always say with a lot of the clients that come in that are just starting out is like, I don't even care if you have a website. Let's run a lead gen campaign that just pushes to a calendar, right? Let's just put your offer out there and see if people will actually raise their hand just off of that lead gen. Because if we can do that and they raise their hand, then we can take all the information we get from those calls and build a great website that addresses all their pain points. We can take all of that and we can build content that helps warm people up. But it all starts with getting that initial validation.
Excellent. Drew, if people wanted to learn more, if people wanted to get in touch with you, how would they do that?
You can visit me online, growhouse.org, GROHAUS.org. And follow. I'm Growhouse on just about every social platform out there. As a marketer, I do dabble in a little bit of each. But really, where I'm most focused right now is TikTok, like I said. And you can visit me there, visit me on my website, book a free coaching session. Happy to talk to any of the listeners out there who think they need some help.
Fantastic.
Excellent.
Brilliant.
This has been the digital download. If you enjoyed it, if you have something to say, if you'd like to be a guest, we would love to hear from you. On screen is the QR code. You can also visit us at digitaldownload.live and click on the Be Our Guest. We love to hear from subject matter experts. We love to hear from people like Drew. So, Drew, thank you very much for being a part of today's show.
Thank you very
much. To our
much.
audience, thank you for the engaging questions. Tim, Adam, as always, thank you for another great episode. And signing off.
Thanks, Drew. Thanks, Rob. Thanks, everybody.